Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. The March 2025 Banzuke is out, which means it's time for us to break it down. We'll dig into the Banzuke, see the decisions that were made, try to figure out why they were made, and overall try to make our understanding of how the Banzuke works a little better than it was before. If you missed the community post, the Kirishima breakdown is done, but I'm gonna put it out tomorrow so that I'm not putting out multiple videos in one day. Alright, Banzuke time, let's get into it. Starting at the top, Hoshoryu is the Yokozuna. By the way, I would recommend watching Chris Sumo's video where he mentions that apparently the Yokozuna Council debated for a whole 20 minutes on whether or not to promote Hoshoryu to Yokozuna after the judges were split but eventually decided to pass along his possible promotion to the council. I guess the news outlets in Japan are not real thrilled with this. I guess I wouldn't be either because this is kind of a big deal for the national sport. But anyway, it's a short video, go check it out. We're gonna keep going with this. Onosato's 10 wins move him to Ozeki 1 East. Kotozakura's 5 wins drop him to Ozeki 1 West. As expected, Daisho, who was Sekiwake West, his 11-4 record bumps him over to Sekiwake East, and now we get to the first wrong decision we made on our Guess the Banzuke, but a completely reasonable decision by the committee. Oho, Kirishima, this was a coin flip all the way. I thought Kirishima was going to get the spot. I said because of history, and I think I relied more on because Kirishima was an Ozeki and, he has the history to back up that he should be at that rank. But to be honest, it's as much because of Oho. Now, the fact that I've been doing this Kirishima breakdown, not to give anything away, but I could see how the committee might look at how Kirishima's fighting and go beyond his record and think, you know what? He might be able to hold up at these higher ranks, but we're not really sure. But Oho has never, ever had a tournament anything like the one he had in January. When you look at how the Sanyaku is expected to perform, obviously the Yokozuna is supposed to win. The Ozeki are supposed to be great. But the Sekiwake and Komusubi are supposed to do well also, and the Sekiwake are expected to be a little bit better than the Komusubi, right? Because they're a higher rank. So I'm a little surprised that they put Oho ahead of Kiri just because Oho does not have any kind of history to suggest that he's going to hold up as a Sekiwake. Maybe they just saw enough in him that they're like, you know what, we think he's turned a corner and we'd like to give him a chance at this higher rank. I don't know. But regardless, this was a 50-50 pick all the way. We got it wrong. A lot of people got it right. That's okay. We move on. Abi. He goes down a half rank from Komusubi 1 East to Komusubi 1 West with his 7-8 record. Wakataka Kage, likewise, Maegashira 1 East for him. Then we've got Wakamoto Haru, Gonoyama, Chiyoshoma, Tobizaru, Takonosho, and Takayasu. All of those correct. If you'd like to see the logic and you don't already know it, you can check out our other Banzuke videos. We talk about it there, why those placements are correct. Now we get to one that I was relatively confident in, but there's a reason I got it wrong, and this one is important. If you learn anything about the Banzuke from this video, make it this. So someone reminded me after I put out the video that, hey, the Sanyaku shrunk, which means Ura, if he stays in place, that means he's actually going to go up relative to everyone else. So what that means is, if there's 8 guys in the Sanyaku, which is what there was in January, then Maegashira 1 East, in terms of the whole list, is number 9. Then 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and Maegashira 4 East is number 16, right? With only 7 guys, then 1 East is 8 rather than 9, and you can see where this is going. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and if they want Ura to go no higher than the 16th overall position, as opposed to simply no higher than Maegashira 4 West, then he really does need to go back to 5 East, right? Because that's the 16th spot. Now, I've looked at this in the past. I didn't really think about it when I was making my final picks because up to this point, what I've seen suggests that they slightly lean in this direction, but there wasn't anything like a scientific sample size to suggest that, yes, you can reliably count on this happening. But this is an example that's worth looking at because Ura, he was in the Joy, right? So he had 5 Sanyaku opponents. 3 of them did pretty poorly, but 2 did really well. Each Yamamoto was a couple ranks behind, and he had 3 Sanyaku opponents, all of whom did badly. I don't know if the committee cares whether or not they do badly, but, I'm just saying it so we have the details here. More to the point, each Yamamoto was only 8 and 7. And if there's any winning records that they tend to not push up that far if they don't have to, it's guys who are 8-7 because they were awfully close to a losing record, right? It kind of makes sense. So for those reasons, I figured, you know what, Ura's probably just going to stay in place. Because they, in this instance, still put Ichi Yamamoto ahead of Ura, because also bear in mind, Ichi Yamamoto was down here at 6 West. If he went here, that's plus 1.5 ranks. With an 8-7 record, that's already being over-promoted. So they had to over-promote him further just to move Ura back. If not for this relative placement thing, I don't think that happens. I think Ura maintains his spot at 4 West. The only reason really to do this is because Ura was 16th overall, and by doing this, they keep him 16th overall. So as we get further down, we're going to see there are 7 and 8 guys who did stay in place, but that's because there really weren't any good alternatives. In this case, there was an alternative and they made use of it. Now, with only 7 Sanyaku members, there's not going to be a whole lot of shrinkage. Koto Zakura would have to completely fall apart, basically, because 6 is the absolute minimum. But as the Sanyaku gets bigger and then gets smaller, this is information that we could use to our advantage. Plus, as the Sanyaku gets bigger, that relative placement may work the other way when it comes to making these placements. So it's something to watch out for, something to keep in mind. Unfortunately, Ura drops a half a rank. Well, you know, it happens. No big deal. After that, Kinbozan does in fact get his exact 9 ranks with his 12-3 record. Umi and Takeru Fuji drop into place. Now, I'm going to take a little credit for this one. I made a boo-boo on the one with Ura, but, okay, Shodai's correct. Now, Tamawashi and Atami Fuji. Like I said in the Guess the Banzuke video, if you missed that, this is noteworthy. So Atami Fuji was 5-10, and he was Maegashira 2 West. So the exact correct emotion would have been 5 ranks, and that would have put him here at 7 West. Guys in the Joy, guys in those top Maegashira ranks, almost never get over-demoted unless there just isn't any choice. In this case, there was a choice, but it was a tough one because Tamawashi was 9-6, and his correct placement was Maegashira 7 East. So mathematically, he was slightly ahead of Atami Fuji, but that certainly hasn't stopped them in the past from putting the guy who was that higher rank ahead of the guy coming up from further down. But in this case, I don't know, maybe that relative placement thing was playing in my head and I just didn't realize it. Maybe I just had the vibes right, whatever. But it looked wrong to have Tamawashi end up behind Atami Fuji so that Atami Fuji gets saved and Tamawashi gets not just a half rank less than he's supposed to, but a full rank less than he's supposed to. Lo and behold, Tamawashi is ahead of Atami Fuji. They pulled the trigger on the over-demotion. Hey, hooray for us, made a good pick. Oshoma lands exactly where he should. Hakuwoho and Endo. This was a coin flip. I flipped the coin back the other way with my Guess the Banzuke pick, and this was correct. I'm pretty happy about that one. But this one, they were tied for the same spot. The Tamawashi Atami Fuji thing, I'm not calling a coin flip because Tamawashi was ahead, so they had to make a specific decision on what to do. Hakuwoho and Endo calculated to the same spot, so they just had to decide which one gets ahead of the other. In this case, they picked Hakuwoho. Cool, got it right. Nishikigi and Shonen Umi go where they should. Now, Shonen Umi and Midori Fuji were tied, but Midori Fuji was 7-8. He couldn't go any higher than this. So that gave the spot to Shonen Umi. That was easy. Midori Fuji stayed in place because Meisei, Takeru Fuji, and Onokatsu all calculated way behind him. There was not a reasonable alternative. There wasn't actually any alternative. Putting any of those guys ahead of him would have been frankly a farce. Now, Meisei and Takeru Fuji, I got those flip-flopped, but in the Guess the Banzuke video, I did say that they could flip-flop, and that would make perfect sense. Not really a surprise. So we missed that coin flip, and further down, Kota Shoho and Mitake Yumi, what did I say? If you're going to go with the guy with the better record in one, go with the guy with the better record in the other. Now, I did say towards the end that I could see Kota Shoho ending up ahead of Mitake Yumi, even if they didn't do that with Meisei, but they ended up doing both. So, I got those wrong. I probably should have flipped them at the time. That's my bad. From a competitive perspective, as a Guess the Banzuke player, it feels bad because I get no points for those, even though they were pretty close. Whatever, you know, if you play this game for a while, it happens, and I hope you will play the game for a while because it is a lot of fun. But we're not talking about Guess the Banzuke specifically, we're talking about just the Banzuke and how it works. Onokatsu, now technically they could have bumped Onokatsu down, but they would have had to put Shishi ahead of him. They would have had to put a guy coming up from Juryo ahead of him just to knock him back. And they didn't think that that was worth doing. I don't blame them. I'm not surprised. What I am surprised about is that they took Nishiki Fuji. So he was down here at Maegashira 17, right? And he was 9-6. So +3 ranks, that's the quote unquote correct promotion. That should get him to Maegashira 14 East. The question was, and I asked this in the video, are they going to put him ahead of Ryuden or possibly Ryuden and Shishi? I didn't think it was that likely they'd put him ahead of both guys, maybe Ryuden. But they did. They overpromoted him just to move the Juryo guys back. Similarly, Shura no Umi was way behind Aonishiki mathematically, far enough that I thought they would just put Aonishiki ahead of him, because why not? He did really well. Shura no Umi is already getting under-demoted. There's not a great reason to put Shura ahead. And yet they did. They put him ahead of Aonishiki. So what's the takeaway here? You know, I don't know that there is a great one. In this case, they took the guys who were in Makuuchi and moved them as far up as was reasonably practicable. But they don't do this every time. That's the thing. As long as the guys coming up from Juryo don't go too far up, and like I said in the other video, Maegashira 13 seems to be the limit, they don't always put the Makuuchi guys ahead of as many Juryo promotees as possible. Now maybe this is a change. Maybe 2025 came around and they decided they're going to make things a little bit different now. They're going to do things this way. Going from March into May should tell us something as well. But everything with the Juryo guys was kind of take 6 darts in your hand and throw them at the dartboard at once and hope you hit anything. In this case, we didn't. Some people did. Good for them. But there's not a whole lot to take away from this until and unless we start to see tendencies in the Banzukes to come that match what we're seeing here. Now, even with Shura and Nishiki Fuji getting bumped up, that still puts Sado no Umi in the same spot, as well as Asakoryu as expected. Like I said, Kota Shoho and Mitake Yumi, that was a coin flip. They went with Kota Shoho. It happened. And we also got Shirokuma and Toki Hayate right. Now, maybe the fact that the Sanyaku shrank and Toki Hayate was number 42 of 42, so to keep him in the division, they had to put someone ahead of him, and that guy couldn't be Tama Shoho. That's definitely a line of logic they could have used. Maybe they didn't think Shirokuma had actually earned it, but maybe they had to use Shirokuma to bump Toki Hayate into the proper position as to their definition of proper. Regardless, that one was more like the Tamawashi and Atami Fuji one, not a coin flip, more of a decision. They picked Shirokuma. Well, Tama Shoho, he didn't do nearly as bad as I expected. Hopefully he'll make it back up. I do enjoy watching him fight. I'd love to see him actually get a winning record in the top division, even if he can just do it once. That would be fun. And that's the Banzuke for March 2025, broken down. Everything makes enough sense outside of the Juryo stuff, which could make sense as we see Banzukes going forward if they have any tendencies that they start to lean on, or maybe this was just where they were their most drunk and nothing's going to be the same going forward, who knows. In any case, hope you learned something, hope you did well and guessed the Banzuke if you played. Other than that, check out the Kirishima breakdown tomorrow. I'll see you there.